What's going on, you guys? So with patch 1.07, as we all know, we got tons of buffs, some buffs for spells, martial arts, weapons, basically everything. If you haven't checked it out yet, go watch my video covering all the patch notes linked in the description down below. But with this patch, I'm going to be going over some of the individual buffs and nerfs on some of the most drastic ones, to show you guys how powerful or horrible some of these changes were. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, not miss out on any of these other daily Wolong content videos. So let's get into this. So today we're going to be going over a martial art that is called C-Split. It can drop on any of the hammer type of weapons. Basically what it does is that it raises your weapon up high, then forcefully swings it to the ground. Additionally, you can hold the input to charge the attack for larger amounts of damage, so this is one of, if not the #1 hardest hitting martial art in the entire game. Before this patch, the weapon did a massive amount of damage, with the only downside being that it was just so slow. The charge up was beyond slow on this attack that most of the time with you using it, you just always be instantly knocked out of it. Its extremely long wind-up animation is just, it wasn't good. But now, we don't have to worry about that anymore. With this latest patch, it got a huge buff, which then shortens the time it takes to build up energy, adjusted the intervals between stages of build up to the energy, and then shortens the recovery sequence while transitioning to the strike. Basically all that means is that the attack has been sped up almost 2 times its original charge up time, but fully kept all the amounts of damage that it did. So then let's go over a more in-depth what exactly this martial art does. So C-Split, as I said earlier, it has a charge up to 3 stages. The first stage just quickly slams your hammer down onto the ground and is really fast attack that can catch players off guard really easily. The second stage has a slightly longer wind up, but for a little more damage, and then the third wind up has an even longer wind up, but does huge amounts of damage. When you do fully charge up the attack, it does send out a bunch of rocks in a radius around where the hammer lands though, which it does give it an increase in the range, which can also mess up players as they think the attack isn't going to reach them. The martial art itself, even though it got sped up, it's still slow. So throwing it out randomly leads to 2 different outcomes. Someone spams a deflect because they don't know the timing of it, and then they get lucky and they get their little deflect off and then you die. Or, same scenario but they miss the deflect and get one shot instantly. But I found a way better way than just trying to hope that your enemy misses their deflect. So you know how whenever you hit an enemy with max negative spirit and you can knock them into that critical state that allows you to critical strike them? Yeah, that's what we're going to be using as your opening. This can be a little tricky timing though. Most of the time, actually physically hitting your opponent out of spirit will throw them a little bit too far back to actually be able to connect them with this attack. So then that means if we can't hit them, then that means we need to deflect them out of spirit, right? Because anytime you deflect an opponent out of spirit, they will actually be staggered, taking them longer to recover, and they won't get knocked back super far away. By deflecting a normal attack doesn't stagger them for too long, so the second you know you got it off, then you're going to have to start spamming the martial art itself, and even if you end up missing half a second to this, you will miss the timing completely. This is super tight and it needs to be done in like perfect synchronization. Alternatively, the best, most reliable way to guaranteeing this hit is that if you deflect an unblockable attack or a martial art attack that your opponent uses, because it actually sets them off balance for an even longer amount of time, so then that 100% guarantees this martial art to actually hit. And as you can tell from all these clips in the background, once this thing hits, there is no way your opponent is ever surviving this attack. The damage output of this is basically outrageous. You also need a very specific build to make this as powerful as it is. So the armor you're going to need is the full Flying General's armor set, also known as Lubu's armor set, because of the set bonus it gives, which for the most part, most of the bonuses are meh, except for the martial arts spirit consumption minus 2.8%, And then of course, the one we really want, that's martial art damage plus 11.4%. Huge amounts of extra damage. Then don't forget to put on the divine beast called Jeshye, because they also give you a massive passive that gives you tons of more martial art damage. Then of course we're gonna need some embedments. So for Lubu's armor, it's actually pretty limited, so all we can really put on it that's the most important to the build is more martial art damage. As you can tell, for the rest of my embedment slots, I didn't even really touch them much, because all I needed was that martial art damage. Once that's done, you'll have an exactly whopping amount of 36% more extra damage to your martial arts skills. That is 36% more damage anytime you use a martial art. That already is actually outrageous. Obviously, you can still run this martial art without having this specific build, but let's just say, for example, the charge up normally does around 1000 damage. Having this build on would give you an extra 360 more damage just for free. So if you want to one-shot your way through the entire game, then I'd highly suggest getting this. And then, so how is it for PvE? For bossing, it's definitely extremely satisfying, outputting like 1300 damage in a single swing. I've heard about pairing this with the right specific race set bonuses will do upwards of 2000 damage, so it can be extremely powerful. Once you learn the patterns and openings on the enemy that you're fighting and learn the perfect timing to use this, you'll be able to shred bosses no problem with how hard this bad boy hits. Funny enough, I actually did make a video on a martial art that's actually similar to this one called Iron Calf. It basically does the same thing, but can be used on polearms and glaives, but it did not hit nowhere near as hard as this one did. The only reason why I saw C-Split being worse before the patch was because of the wind-up time was outrageous and couldn't be used the way that I use it now and how I would be able to use Iron Calf. So this is without a doubt the strongest martial art in the game, just because of one single increase in a charge speed buff. That just goes to show you how even a slight change to something can make something super viable. I hope Team Ninja really keeps up with this, because a lot of the martial arts themselves are kinda lackluster. So let's hope they keep up with this trend and this patch in general, because man, they did wonders here. But that's going to do it for me, everyone. Thank you all so much for watching the video, and be sure to stick around over the next few days as we go over more of these insane buffs and nerfs. So enjoy the rest of these PvP clips of me smashing people to death, and enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.